Hi, and welcome to this special event where MultiSoft and Dime Software are coming together to present an entry-level introduction to field service management using Business Central, powered by a few of our own software products. For today, you don't need any prior knowledge of our own applications to be able to follow along. And although not strictly necessary, it's also good to have at least some basic understanding of Business Central or its predecessor, Microsoft Dynamics NAV. Now, I'm glad to share that I'm being joined today by Bertalan from MultiSoft. Both Bertalan and I have been in the channel for over a decade now. And even though our paths cross pretty often, it wasn't until a few months ago, during a conference at the other side of the world, that we got to know each other quite well. And it was over a couple of beers, perhaps one too many, that we pitched the idea of today's presentation. And I'm glad this is finally happening. Now, near the end of the presentation, we'll share our contact details with you. But before that, I would like to keep this introduction as short as possible and get to the fun part as quickly as we can. Now, of course, the topic of today is field service management in Business Central. Specifically, we'll focus on how you could use standard Business Central and plug and play third-party tools to close those missing gaps. After providing just a little bit of context, we are going to spend most of this hour just showcasing our products and how they work with Business Central and how they work together indirectly through BC. Now, if you have questions throughout this presentation, there's a Q&A box somewhere here in Teams, which you can use to ask your questions. We will answer your questions at the end of the session if time allows us. And finally, this session is being recorded and we'll make it available to you afterwards on our usual channels and platforms. Before I begin, though, I would like to reiterate that since this is our first webinar we do together, we want to start with the very basics. I think there will be people here who've never heard of Dime.Scheduler or Servotion, so let's make sure we cover the basis, and future collaborations will certainly follow for sure. Now, our goal of this presentation is to suggest just one way to compose a technological solution to field service management. Both MultiSoft and Dime Software operate in the Dynamics channel, of course, so that's going to be our main topic of today. Now, to put things into perspective, after about a dozen years or so of doing this type of work, and I think I can speak for the both of us that we have spoken to thousands of companies during this time, which has given us sufficient insights into how companies get their work done or not done, depending on how you look at it. We've seen it all from good old pen and paper to Excel sheets to using boutique niche standalone applications to these full-blown field service systems, low code, and of course there's still the good old custom development that never seems to disappear from this the face of the earth. There's no right or wrong solution here. Usually most of these older and low-tech solutions, they still work perfectly when they operate on a small scale. When the company gets larger and larger, that's when it typically starts to break down a little bit. If you have to manage dozens of technicians and hundreds of customers on a daily basis, scale can suddenly become a bit of an issue. And having insufficient tooling, it tends to be a symptom of the underlying problem, but by itself, it can be a pretty big problem and it can have a severe impact on the company. Now, of course, there are many possible solutions out there, and we are here today to make a case for the composition model, specifically plugging in add-ons for back-office systems like Business Central, of course. This model, like anything else, has its pros and cons. It's up to our partners to help their customers make an informed decision. And I hope today's presentation will help a little bit with that rather daunting task. Now, that's enough talk for now, I believe, and let us show you some action. What we're going to do in the next, I think, 40 minutes or so is to go full circle and try to simulate a real-life situation. We are going to begin in Business Central, of course, and create a service order, as we'll see in the second part when Bertalan takes over. You can also start from the Servotion portal and submit a case from there. In the end, what it will it will create an order in Business Central, and we're going to use that to look for a technician that can go out and execute the work that has been assigned to that particular resource. And obviously, we'll be using our planning tool Dime.Scheduler for that part. When we found the right person for the job, we're going to confirm the appointment and update it back into Business Central. And after that, it's up to the technicians to carry out the work. And we're going to have a look at Servotion for that part. The mobile app and everything around it will pick up the planning and provide the capabilities necessary for the resource to do the job. And then, like everything else, it will send back updates to Business Central. So you get the idea already. The theme of today is that the story begins in Business Central and it ends in Business Central with two small loops, two small detours to Dime.Scheduler and Servotion, respectively. That's enough talk now. Let me switch over to my other two tabs, which I've got here in my browser. We have our trusty planning tool, Dime.Scheduler, and of course we have Business Central here. It is Business Central Cloud, but it's the same story if you're working on BC on-prem and even older versions of NAV. But I would guess more people are more familiar with BC than with this screen right here. So perhaps I should start with this particular page. There's a lot on screen, as you can see. There's a lot of colors. There's a geographical map, lots of columns, rows, a chock-a-block. There's no pixel that's not used. So it could be a bit overwhelming, but really, it's really rather simple. It's a planning tool, so it's not rocket science. There are simply two concepts that you should be aware of, and everything revolves around those two simple concepts. And they are tasks and resources. That's it. Let me start with the idea of a task, which you can see in this little component here at the top left corner of the screen, in a component that we call the open task list. A task in our dictionary, that's just a unit of work. It's something that you want to get done. So what that is, where it comes from, what level you want to be working at, that's completely up to you and your customer to define that. If we're talking in the context of Business Central, we could be referring to a task as a service order, but it could be a project, it could be a production order, it could be a sales order. It doesn't really matter where that data comes from, as long as you can get that data into our system. So to give you a bit of context here, in this type column, you can see we have some sales orders, assembly orders, yada, 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 some projects. But today I'm going to focus, of course, on our service order. So long story short, a task is just something that you want to plan. And this list shows all the unplanned work, hence the wording open. The name of the game will be drag and drop. So you will take the item that you want to plan, drag it and drop it somewhere on this planning board component here, which would arguably be the most important component of them all, because yeah, for obvious reasons, that's where you will do your planning and your rescheduling. At the left-hand side of our splitter here, we can see our resources, and like a task, a resource could be anything or anyone that you want to plan. So these could be service technicians, it could be a QA analyst, could be your fleet of vehicles, could be special kinds of equipment. Again, a resource is just something or someone that you want to plan. By default, we'll look into the resource table in Business Central, but it could be something else like manufacturing lines or machine centers. It doesn't really matter as long as you can give a definition of what a resource is in your particular situation. All the other elements on screen, like a geographical map, we have a filters component, we even have a capacity and planning pivot grid. I'll try to get these covered later on, but suffice to say right now that these are supporting components in the basic process of finding the right person for the job, which will eventually lead up to the drag and drop action in the end. I'll get to this part in a second, but of course, we have to introduce our most important element of them all, and that's Business Central, of course, because without BC, there will be not much use of for Dime.Scheduler. And actually, nothing that you see on this screen does not exist in Business Central. So everything originates from Business Central. So you can completely control the data flow into Business Central, and as we'll see later on, how the planning data arrives back into BC once we've done the planning here. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So let's just say a customer called and they need to be helped out. There's a machine broken or something. You could go through the Servotion portal, as we'll see later on, but I'll leave that up to Bethlon to showcase. I'll just stick with a very simple service order. And everything that I'm going to show is standard Business Central. You're all bigger experts than I am in this area, so I'm just going to keep it nice and simple. I'll just select a customer here, which will populate most of the fields that we'll need for planning. And I'm going to go for this guy right here. I'll select the item that needs to be serviced. I'm going to do one thing that's not strictly necessary, but it will indicate one of our capabilities here. What we'll do here is select a service order type. What we could do with this list, we could link a type of order to one of these background colors that we saw on the planning boards. It doesn't have to be the service order type. You could use any other field, but it's here. It's standard Business Central, so why not use it? So I'll select the general service here for this particular order. I know by heart when you're going to plan this order 217, we'll see a bit later on that the background color will be this blue color to represent the general service. But yellow could mean it could be a preventive maintenance order, or a purple item could be a production order. So you could use it to any property that you want to use in Business Central. Could be standard Business Central, could be custom Business Central. It doesn't matter. It's a very simple color coding scheme. I'll get back to this later because you can also see there's a second color coding element at the bottom of our appointments. We'll use that to represent the status, and that will be quite useful whenever we have the mobile app into play, which could be used, for example, to indicate whether the technician has arrived on site if he's going to start working on that order. But more about that later. Let's get back into BEC, because that's pretty much all we need to get started with the planning. In Business Central, you will find almost no evidence that Dime.Scheduler exists at all, which we like. Apart from here and there, the occasional button, as you can see here, to send data over to and from the to Dime.Scheduler. An often asked question is, can we automate that? Does a user always have to push this button to start planning in our tool? Of course, you don't have to do that. If there's a way for you to automate that, for example, the status, if a status hits a certain marker, you could automatically send data over. But we're the ISV. We don't want to impose any business logic in this workflow. So if you can find a way, please go ahead, do it. It's your control that's in Business Central. In the end, though, what we're going to do behind the scenes is we're going to gather everything relevant for planning, customer information, contacts, service items, the whole shebang, and we'll gather that into one row in our list of unplanned work. So let's go back here and we'll see this order 217 should show up in our list of unplanned tasks. So let me zoom in again here. I've sorted on the order number, so I should go down here the list and we see automatically it pops up in our bucket of unplanned work. And as soon as a task shows up in this list, it is completely the planner's call to decide what's going to happen next. If the planner already knows who's going to do this order 217, all you need to do is drag that item and drop it somewhere on the planning board. That's the easy story, but usually it's a bit more complicated than that. So you may want to use, for example, our map to see where are our people and where does this person need to go to execute that task. So you can click on your task that you want to plan. And if there's a location norm for that, which there is usually in BC, you will see this blue marker here will be added to the map to show where you have to go to execute that task. And these purple markers, they show the locations of our resources. This could be location where they are at the moment. If you have track and trace devices in people's cars, you could be using the actual location, or it could be something more static like depot addresses or even home addresses of your resources or the employees. Whatever mode you use, though, you can calculate and simulate drive time and travel time. So if we have a look for this guy, Richard here, we would see it would take about 44 minutes to get to the site somewhere in the south of the London area. So purely based on where that guy is, and if you have a look at his calendar for the week, which we see here, there's not much going on for him. So purely based on this guy's location, we could say, all right, let's assign order 2117 to Richard. Again, it might be oversimplifying things. So usually we would see a situation like this where you have your map and another component on the screen, which we call the resource filters component. And that's essentially a query filter builder where you can look for resources with certain attributes coming from standard tables like skills and service zones. But use your imagination here. It could be anything. Could be a department, could be a language, could be a product certification. You just add whatever you want to add, whatever is useful, and then you can assign them to your resources and then look for them ad hoc, like I'm doing now. So perhaps we know we need somebody in the Netherlands with a particular skill. Hit that filter button here, and then you see right away in your planning board, these are the resources that comply with this particular search that we filled out here. But of course, this is Business Central data, so why not use that same modeling in your tasks? If you know beforehand in your task what is required for a resource to do the job successfully, you can pass along the requirements, in which case you'll see this filter button will be enabled. Of course, the idea is that you click on that. This executes the query against our resources, and with one click of a button, we can see these are the people and the resources that we could consider. And again, here, this guy Richard shows up. So he's close by, he's qualified, and he's obviously completely available. So based on the data that we have for this order, for this resource, this could be the right person for the job. But like I already said, we're not going to impose any business logic. So if you want to ignore all of that, that's fine. In the end, what you want to do is look for the right resource, look for the right date and time in your head, and just drop it there on the planning board. So let's put this one on the books for Thursday at 10 o'clock. And from this moment on, whenever you do something on this planning board, we're going to perform a whole bunch of digital witchcraft behind the scenes to write back this planning data into the system of interest. This could be Business Central, but it could be Outlook, could be a Power Automate flow, but then also more importantly, the mobile apps and the mobile app that we're going to see in a second. So for starters, this order 217 no longer shows up in our list of unplanned work. If I were to remove this again, you'll see order 217 shows back up in the unplanned tasks. So this is important. This shows the list of unplanned or incompletely planned work. So if you put it back on Thursday, you'll see it gets removed from this unplanned work. As you can see by its color, if you have a look at the detail card, we'll see this blue color is linked to this service order type, which we defined in BC. So with just to look at it, are you planning, and you know what kind of work you have planned for this resource, Johnny. Now let's have a look at Business Central, what happens there. So whenever you do something on the planning board, we're going to push that data into BC and process it any way that you want to. So right click on your appointment, navigate to the links, which will open up links to SharePoint documents, to-do lists, customer cards. Could be any link that you want to use, but the one that I'm interested in is this service orders list. So click on that, and that just takes us back in the new tab in the browser, and will take us back to this order 217. Here too, the idea is pretty much the same. What you want to do with that planning data, that's completely your call. Us as the ISV will try to use standard Business Central, like in this module particular, the resource allocation lines would be a good table to write back this planning data. So if we have a look here in this allocation list, this row, that's the exact same thing as this block right here. So it's standard Business Central, but something we produced, and then other applications like the one we're going to see in a couple of minutes would be Servotion that just taps into standard data and can work with that without having to have a direct dependency between our system. As you can see, it's already written back. It's all bidirectional. It's all real time. So there's no need for manual duplication, no more copy pasting. It's all a blast from the past. So let's say this guy, Johnny, he called me and said, yeah, what the hell did you do? I'm not available on Thursday. Put me on Friday. Sure. So let's reschedule, put it on Friday. And perhaps in order to send these guys home earlier in the afternoon, I'll assign a second person to that job. So I'll hit the shift key on my keyboard and start dragging on a second resource. And then you see we have now the same appointment for more than one resource, hence this sort of multi-user icon. And as you can expect per block, we should expect to see one row. So when I hit F5, you can see there's a new date here, and we have a second resource assigned to this resource allocations table. So this is actually the glue that will be between Dime.Scheduler and Servotion in a minute. But before I pass over the baton to Bettelon, I want to show you one thing. That's the second color coding element. Now that we have the planning data inside Business Central, we also have underlying a link with these blocks, which means you can send updates back from Business Central or by extension Servotion back into your planning board. And that's when I typically want to show you the second color coding element, which is often used to display the status. So what we're going to do here is link a status to a color. And in BDC, we have a good suspect for that. That would be the repair status code of your item. So it's the same idea here. You can just use a table, use a checkbox somewhere, and link that to a color to represent a status or an attribute of your item at the hands. But here we can use the repair status code. So it now was initially, you saw that was this sort of blue color. So let's say the technician arrives on site. We'll see that in a second. He starts the timer, start, stop. That will push an update into Business Central or not. That's up to you. But if you do, you could, for example, set it to in process. And if that item was planned into Dime.Scheduler, we know there's planning blocks for that on our planning boards. So now we can update that color from this blue hint to what we'll see here. It's now this orange color. So now we see, without doing anything, the technician has arrived on site, so we can be quite sure that this planning is accurate and the person will be finishing on time. So it's all bidirectional. So once you have set up the workflow in Business Central, it's all real-time bidirectional. So it's quite kind of nice. And you're in the driver's seat because it's all Business Central functionality. All right, so enough about planning. Let's have a look at Servotion and see what capabilities we have for the technicians on the road and in the field. So Bertrand, the floor is yours.
So let me also welcome everyone in this webinar. Thank you for joining us today. And I really appreciate the great introduction, Hendrik. Yeah, it's funny. We had to travel like 9,000 kilometers to discuss this webinar after a couple of years of working together. But I'm just happy that we are here and we could put this together. Yeah, a lot of interesting stuff. Let's start with a bit of a background, what Servotion and how it comes into the picture of field service management and scheduling. So as Hendrik highlighted it very well, we took a look at Business Central. It has very powerful functionality in field service management, but there are certain aspects that we've been missing. One of them was visual scheduling. That's the part that you've seen to be covered by Dime.Scheduler, but we identified a certain several other aspects that we could improve based on customer feedback. You might be familiar with one of our, or basically our flagship product that's called Mobile Navy, which is a mobile extension for Business Central. It's not really a use case specific solution for BC. Basically, it just gives you the extra layer of mobility that you need in certain application areas, such as sales, warehouse management, manufacturing, production, and last but not least, field service. We had a couple of clients using our solution, Mobile Navy, in field service scenarios, and we've listened to their needs. One of the needs was to create something where the clients can receive the, let's say, maintenance requests or service requests. That was the point where we decided to develop a customer portal. You will see that Servotion is modular. Basically, it was built around Mobile Navy and field service focused configuration, but we added other modules. Again, one was the customer portal. Then we added a connector to Dime.Scheduler to provide our clients with a visualization tool. And there is a fourth one, which is an automatic scheduler. This will not be very much emphasized during my demonstration because that's not very visual, but what it does by pushing a few buttons, it can reallocate those resources that are not really blocked. and assign the service tasks in a more optimized way based on certain parameters that you can weigh in. So let's imagine, for the sake of my demonstration, that I represent a company who does maintenance and service for companies who own computers. So the first thing is receive a request related to, let's say, an issue that has to be investigated and addressed respectively. So at this point, the customer portal comes into the picture. You can provide access to the customer portal to your end users. So in my scenario, it's my end user who reports certain issues regarding one of their items. So I'm now my customer's customer. I know it might be a bit tricky to follow, but let's try to imagine that. I log into the customer portal that I received from the company who does the maintenance of my computers. Here I have several options. First, I can open a new case here. I can check my payable invoices. I can go to my account. Basically, that's a company summary. Who am I? I can check the My Service cases and the My Service items, also the archived ones, archived invoices, archived service orders. Under the My Service items, I will only see now one computer. That's how my demo environment is set up today. And yeah, my demo will be opening a new case regarding this computer acting weird. So I click on the new case. Here's a very simple form that I can fill out. Basically, I need to fill out two fields here. One is the symptom codes. Basically, this is coming from Business Central. And this was a very good point, what Hendrik has emphasized, that we as an ISV are rarely trying to redefine Business Central processes and the Business Central logic. What we want to give to our partners is an enhanced list of possibilities, basically extending your arm with tools that we've been missing from Business Central. And this is a very good thing in Business Central, actually, that you have the symptom codes. This is fully customizable. You can select from this list what are the main issues usually regarding to a computer. So in my case, let's say it's a strange noise. I can put some manual text in it. Let's say it's a weird buzzing noise. What else can I do here is I can attach a picture. If I can take a picture of a noise, that I know that might sound tricky, but bear with me, I have a solution for that. So I suspect this might be the source of the weird noise. So I send this to the company who does the maintenance of my computers. So this was the part of the customer's customer. They can log a new case. And what else they can do on the portal? They can track the My Service cases. Basically, these are the open cases. They can track the status of the requests and stay up to date of the process. Now let's jump back to Business Central and go to the service orders. It takes a few seconds to synchronize back. Once it's created on Business Central side, it should receive a repair status code. So if I push the refresh button here, hopefully it will receive the numbering shortly. I might have to refresh a few pages here. Sorry about that. Still not. Okay, here we go. So we have a new number here, and it should receive the initial repair status code. That means it has submitted successfully to the company who does my maintenance. The company, now I'm switching my heads back to the company who does the maintenance. They received this new new service request, they can open up the service order respectively and be informed about what the client has reported. I can check under the lines that it's a desktop computer that has some issues. I see that the status of the service order is impending. I can go to the service item worksheet because basically this will be the document that my service technician will be working on, and this summarizes all the issues reported by the client, all the resolution related matters, pictures, and everything that you collect throughout the service process. Under the Servotion signature, you can check the picture that the client has attached. Again, this is for informational purposes to your service technician. In the related worksheet and comments, you can check the fault comments. It's the weird buzzing noise. So yeah, you are the dispatcher now. What's the next step you have to make in order to eliminate the issue is to allocate resources to that specific service order. Now let's click in the resource allocations. For the resource allocations, we have several options here. One of the options is, as Hendrik showed you, is through Dime. And in my opinion, and that's why we put the Dime allocator, Dime connector into the Servotion, among the Servotion modules, is that because that's very visual. You can do that in a drag and drop way. You have a very good overview of what's happening among your service technicians. So yeah. The other option is through manual processing in Business Central, which can be a bit dry. So, but let's do that for my demonstration. So I select a resource number. I select the allocation date. That's of course today. The allocated hours. Let's say I can eliminate this issue usually in an hour. And let's find a suitable time. That's 4:34 p.m. at the moment. I will give Catherine some time to travel on site. So let's start from 5 p.m. and finish at 6 p.m. And yeah, that's it. So my allocation is complete. What's again the next step? Switching hats, and now I'm gonna become the service technician. And basically this is the most exciting part, because this was really just creating a service order for now, but where the magic happens is on the mobile device side and at the service technicians. So let me quickly log out and log in again. With the help of Servotion, because we will run most probably on a mobile device, either it's a commercial phone or a tablet, we can integrate to a push notification sending service, and we can notify the service technician that they have received a new service task that they have to take care of. And by clicking on the notification that appears on their phone, the respective service task will automatically open on the mobile device, and they can immediately start looking at the directions, the address, and on site they can start working on the task immediately. Again, the idea was to eliminate paperwork issues, like bringing a computer with you, and provide you with a layer of mobility. As you can see, and if you are a bit more familiar with mobile NAV, mobile NAV's base configuration has a lot of other features like related to sales, warehouse management, project production. We've hidden those and really created a very field service focused configuration here. Only the respective and the most relevant features are available in the configuration. But again, this is coming from Business Central, so it's very much flexible and customizable. Under the My Service Task or in the My Service Task line, you can see a notification that's number 1. That means I have one new My Service Task that I have to pay attention to. Before I do that, let me show you that we have all the service items here. These are available from Business Central. I also have the open service order. So if I want to, I can assign myself to one, or I can create a new one. But that's not very typical way of operating as a field service technician. It's up to you if you allow them to do so. So what usually is a specific or a typical process of a service technician is working on a certain case. That's the same SOP 00010 number that we have seen on the customer portal, if you paid attention there, or if you remember, we have the same numbering in Business Central to the related service order. If I click on this My Service Task, it will open up the My Service Task card. If I would use a commercial phone, then most probably I would see only one column. If it's a tablet, it's multiple columns. It's a great thing because it's responsive and it fits to your screen regardless of the device. So what I see here, I see all the necessary information that I need to pay attention during the service case, starting with the item number and the description of the item that I should do the maintenance on today. I can also check the ship to address if it's filled out properly and there is a map integration. There's this small map icon. You can open up your navigation application on the respective device and you can immediately start to navigate to your location. What else do I have here? I have some allocation data, when I should start, when I should finish, what's the priority, if it's under warranty. Again, every information you see here is coming from Business Central. Now, the more important things are coming here below with green because those are the fields that I can fill out. But to effectively start working on a case, I have to travel on site. And for that, I have a button to push. If I push the travel button, what happens is that it updates the repair status code on my card to travel. And basically the same happens in Business Central and therefore in the customer portal as well. So let me go back here. And if I refresh this on the customer portal, the customer can be informed that the service technician is on the way to eliminate the issue. And again, the same happens in Business Central. So this is plug and play. It's bidirectional, as Henrik mentioned as well. With Dime, everything synchronizes back to Business Central immediately. Okay, let's jump in time and let's imagine that I have arrived on site. I can push the start button and it will start recording the time that I'm going to spend on executing this service task. Before I address all the buttons here and I fill out all the information here, let me show you the first one, which is the lines. Here in the lines, I will add all the items that I use during my service task. For example, if I have to change parts in the computer, if I have to bolt on new ones, I can list those here. But what else will be added at the end? One, if there are any travel costs related to the service case, it can be a one-off if you are in the same city, or it can be based on time or geographical distance or whatever. If you push the finish button at the end, all the respective resource lines regarding traveling and time spent on the service case will be shown here. I will show that to you later. Now, let me add a few items here as a start. For example, I also can add an item outside here if I have a barcode scanning enabled gun or barcode scanning enabled device. I can add the items just by scanning those right on the customer on the My Service task card as well. Because it's a weird noise, let me assume that I can suppress the noise with a loudspeaker. So I will build in a loudspeaker now. I can set a resolution command if it was successful. Loudspeaker installed. Okay, I can also confirm that the symptom code was a noise. What was the fault code or fault area code? It was like a mechanical thing. So again, you can fill out a lot of symptoms and resolutions related fields. These are set up from Business Central. Now let's check what other features have I here. First, there's the resource allocation that's currently allocated to myself. If there would be multiple resources allocated to this case, there will be multiple lines here. There's the troubleshoot guide. So if I would have trouble understanding the issue, but there are some troubleshoot guides set up in Business Central, I could use this feature as well. So again, this is something coming from Business Central. I can check. This is like a manual for the maintenance. This is very static. Not really a responsive thing, but might help you to eliminate the issue. There is another, this is a Servotion specific feature. Basically, as I mentioned, we are not really extending the Business Central functionality. This is an exception because that's something we have added to Business Central and to Servotion. This is an answer group, which is essentially a questionnaire that guides you through the service process step by step. There is a so-called feature in mobile and AV and Servotion, which is called staging. And by staging, we mean a gradually step-by-step process that helps you to follow a certain path during your operation. So first, let's say I have to measure something. Currently, it's a yes or no question, but we do support multiple choice, or you can manually type in something. For example, measure the living room. That's again a yes or no question. Did I measure the living room? Yes, I did. And the staging will kick in once I finish a question that has dependency. And as you can see, I have two other mandatory questions now that I didn't have before. That's basically staging. You know, when you have finished something, some other questions were dependent on the answers you gave. And based on that, you have now a new type of question, like enter a number here. Okay. I have a mandatory test. Did I perform that? Yes or no? No is also an answer here. I just have to provide an answer. Yeah, and you have to follow this guide. You can make it mandatory. So like without answering the mandatory questions, you cannot really finish the service case. So based on that, you can enforce your field service technicians to follow some regulations or some necessary steps. That's about the answer groups. What else do we have here? Is I can attach a picture. That's also a possibility when you are doing the questionnaire. So the questionnaire can also have a stage where you have to take a picture. For example, is there any cracks, or is it in a different color? So if you can see any visual marks outside. So yeah, you can upload a picture here. That's me doing the service. You have options considering the size of the Business Central database and the effect uploading a lot of pictures might have on that. We created different options here. Let's say I only need the small size of the picture, and yeah, basically that's it. So once I am finished with all the steps I have to perform, I can check the service item worksheet, and basically what it does, it will generate this report on Business Central side, and it will download it to my device and only visualize it in a PDF. Here's the service item worksheet. I can see that there's the loudspeaker, that's the item, that's the service item. So yeah, the client can check it. And what's missing here is the resource added to the service item worksheet, which I can add by calculating the time. So if I push that and I open up the lines, I can see that resource has been added. It was Catherine's time consumption, and it's 1 hour. It was not 1 hour, but again, that's a Business Central setup, and I have rounded that up to 1 hour. Again, if I download it now, the service item worksheet again, I already have the resource added as a line, and the same happens in the Business Central side as well, as we will see later on. Okay, what else I can do here? If my client can confirm that everything is fine now, I can't hear the buzzing noise, they can sign the service item worksheet. If my report in the background is set up in a way to be generated with the signature, that's also a possibility. So you can even print it out on site if you have, for example, a network printer on site or a mobile printer. So yeah, basically that concludes the service technicians part. If they are really finished, they can push the finish button. This will eliminate the service task from the list, and the ball is back in the dispatching court. And let me jump back to Business Central and the customer portal. If I refresh it again, I can see the service is finished. The customer can be notified. If I open up the service order here, you can see that everything has been synchronized back. The status of the service order is finished. If I open up the service item worksheet, I can check that the item has been added. Catherine Hall's resource has been added. I can check the pictures that has been attached to that specific service order. I capture the signature. I can generate a report based on all that. I can check the comments from the client again, if it was the weird buzzing noise, and I can also check the comment from the resolution that the loudspeaker has been installed. And at this point, it's basically standard Business Central logic. You can continue posting the service order and issuing the service invoice. And this is the point where Servotion, let's say, stops until the next service case appears. So yeah, I really appreciate you paying attention. I hope I could make sense. I could put the operation into a framework. I really try to squeeze everything inside this 20-something minutes. But let me just quickly recap everything what happened. So we opened a new service case through our customer portal that has been immediately synchronized back to Business Central, where I could see the pictures attached, the comments of the client. I could check what was the service item that experienced the issues. I could allocate the resources different ways. You can use Dime for that, or you can do that manually in Business Central. The ball was in the court of the field service technician, and at this point, we executed the job, and everything was synchronized back into Business Central. So yeah, that basically concludes my part. And yeah, the stage is back to Hendrik.
Thanks, Bertlon. Very nice. Well, I think the message has arrived. I'm going to do a very quick recap anyway to wrap up the last 40 minutes. I think both Bertlon and I made it crystal clear that BC is at the heart of it all. The data that matters remains a business central, so you have this nice single version of the truth. And it's you and your customer who brings over the data to the extensions and just set it up the way you want it to. We have two very flexible systems with a lot of wiggle room to play with. It's sort of a batteries included experience, but you still have the choice to tweak. Could be either configuration or it could be customization depending on the requirements that you may have in your particular case. And also, last but not least, of course, that our products are complementary, and yet there's no direct dependency between them, as we saw today. You can plug either application in, and it will just start working with the other. As Bertlon said, there is a possibility for a direct dependency, although in my opinion, that would be the viable choice if all the other options have been exhausted. If not, the partner has all the flexibility and all the power to control the flows to and from these extensions. Now, if you want to get a closer look at one of our products, feel free to use one of these links. We have, I think, lots of common resellers, so it's possible that that partner can do both. And if not, get in touch with us and say hi. And we're also going to be, both of us are going to be in Directions EMEA in a couple of weeks, so why not come by and say hello. And I see you have a couple of more minutes here for Q&A. So on behalf of MultiSoft and Dime Software, I'd like to thank you very much for joining me today, and I hope to hear from you soon. Goodbye.